This is Professor Mark Higdon. This video is for FM 341, and in this video I will show you how to use Adobe Illustrator to develop a more complicated silhouette sketch focusing on a woman's blazer. So I have posted on Blackboard in this folder under Content of the more advanced sketch. And in this case, I have a 2-button blazer, and I just wanted to walk you through in terms of how I would approach drawing this garment. So I have the reference image on the first layer. I'll create a second layer, which will have my sketch on it. And I usually will approach more complicated garments looking at the bigger shapes, starting with those first, and then adding the additional pieces of the garment on top of that, focusing on the smaller elements after. So I'll start with one side of the blazer and draw that item first. And remember, the image that you're using for reference is just a point of reference, so you could certainly modify the silhouette, making it wider or narrower as you're starting to develop the sketch. Okay, so I have 1/2 of the jacket, and I will make a copy and bring that over to the other side. Then I will work on the lapel that will sit on top of the left-hand side of the jacket. So I'm not really talking you through the specific points of using the pen tool. At this point, you should be a little bit more familiar in terms of using the pen tool and making the anchor points. But I really wanted to, in this video, show you in terms of how I would approach looking at the shapes and stacking them on top of one another as I build the garment. And I'm going to do a lot of half of the garment, and then I will use the selection tool holding down the Option key to drag a copy for the right-hand side of the blazer. In this case, I will flip this, so I can do a right-click shortcut and do a transform and reflect it. And I could do that for the big piece as well. So now I'm starting to develop each half of the blazer. And I can use the direct selection tool, the white arrow, to modify each part of the blazer. Now, if you look at the photograph, the left-hand side is on top of the right-hand side. And so because I drew the left-hand side first, that sits underneath. So I can select both the big piece and the lapel and do a right-click arrange and bring those to the front so they'll sit on top of the right-hand side. And then with the direct selection tool, I can adjust the lapels as they sit. Okay. And remember, you have the jacket sitting on the human figure, so you have to think about in terms of how the garment would actually sit there if you took it off the individual and laid it flat on a surface, or put it on a hanger and hung it up so you could see in terms of how the jacket would actually lay on a flatter surface. I'll now add a piece in for the back of the collar. And again, just treating this as its own piece. I'm not going to make a copy of it and flip it. I'll just make a piece that's its own shape. And then I could do a right-click arrange and send that to the back. So that sort of builds the collar at that point. Then I need a piece to fill in for the inside of the lining. And because that is just going to be a piece to fill in the space, I don't necessarily need to worry about it being a specific shape. It's more about filling the area. And I can select that and arrange and send it to the back. Okay, so that starts to build my jacket in terms of how the various pieces sit on top of one another. If I select all of this and group it, then I can move it all together and the various pieces will stay together as I've connected them. All right. In terms of doing the sleeves, I can do one side of the sleeve, and then I can make a copy of that. That's a closed shape, and I can make a copy of that holding down the Option key again, and drag that over to the other side, and then I can do a right-click, transform, and reflect it, and then I can sit that on that side. And because those are drawn after the front of the jacket, I can select those and then arrange and send them to the back. The way that I will select various pieces together is if you select one shape, hold down the Shift key, and then left click on the other shape, you now can select both those shapes and not the pieces in between. Okay, so that allows you to focus in a little bit more on your selection of the items that you're trying to grab. Okay, so that gives me now the front of the jacket, and I will group that so those all stay together. And then in terms of the pockets, I can pull this piece over and just do the pocket shape. And I can round the corner a little bit. There we go. Okay. And if I zoom in, I can adjust in terms of how those are actually sitting. There we go. And you'll notice that there is a seam detail here. So I can just make a solid line here, and I'll remove the fill on that, and I can group those pieces together. And I can hold down the Option key and left click and drag and make a copy to go on the other side. And then I can go to Transform and reflect it and put that on that side of the jacket. Okay, and then in terms of the buttons, I can use the circle tool, which is the ellipse tool here, and make myself a button. And if I hold down the Shift key, when I left click and drag the circle tool, it will actually make it solid. And I'm going to leave this as white right now. I'm not going to make it black because I may change the color once I go to color the garment in assignment 3. So let me just do a sense in terms of the size of that. Yeah, so it's a little small. Again, if I hold down the Shift key, I can make it a little bit bigger. And if I want to do a little zigzag or a buttonhole line, I can just do a little shape like that. And I can do a right-click arrange and send that to the back. So now I have a little shape that looks a little bit like a buttonhole. And if I wanted to do just a tiny circle for the thread buttonhole, again, I can hold down the Shift key, make a solid small circle. If I invert the color, that will give me a black fill. And I can get rid of the outline, so it's just the fill color. And I can make that a little smaller. And then I can move that on top of the button, hold down the Option key, and make the buttonhole. Then select all of this, and I can do an object group. Shortcut for that is Apple or Command key G. And then I can put the buttonhole there, hold down the Option key, and make myself another copy. Okay. So that gives me the front of the jacket, and I can select all of this and group it. I can move it off to the side. If I make a copy of this, I can use this to help me make the back shape. So the back would be pretty straightforward on a blazer. If I hold down the Option key, I can drag a copy over to the side. For the back, I can ungroup this, group it a few times so that I get the various pieces individual. And then I can start to take away the stuff on the front that I wouldn't necessarily need. And most of this I actually can just take off. I'll use the sleeves, I won't use much else. There we go. And I can select all this and just hit the delete key and delete that off. Okay, so now I have the sleeves. So if I was doing the back view of the big shape, I think what I would do is just focus on this as one big solid piece. So if I start here, and that's my shoulder line, and I do underneath the arm, and I can come down to a little bit of an hourglass, down to the bottom, straight across for the hem. Again, come up to here. And you could do half and then copy it and join it like we've done with the t-shirt. In this case, I'm just going to do it myself. The whole piece is one solid piece. Okay. And let's see, I can adjust this with the direct selection tool. And if I bring the sleeves back and bring these to the front, I guess I should put it in the back. Let's see here, send it to the back. There we go. All right. And I can adjust this here. There we go. Okay, and then I would just need to add the back collar area there. So I can just freehand this. Make it a little wider. There we go, that looks pretty good. I'm always going in and adjusting with the direct selection tool and have that sit on top. Okay, so that gives me the front view and the back view. If I wanted to put in I wanted to do a detail line, say with the vent here. Normally that's just a straight line. There might be a line coming across. Reinforcement. You'd have to look at the back of the jacket and see which one, how you want to do that. Or you may have no vent at all. It's up to you. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to group this. I'll make this smaller. And this one here I will make smaller. Remember, I hold down the Shift key when I'm reducing the size in order to conform the proportion. I'll lock that layer, come back to my reference layer. And let's see here. Reduce that down in size. Put that down here. And that pretty much gives me the blazer. That would be a 2-button jacket. Okay, so just a quick reference video to help you understand in terms of how I would approach doing the jacket. One last thing I might add, depending on if you could see inside the back lining, I might add a piece that would sit in the back here. There we go. Okay. And when I go to save this, I'll save it as the blazer example. And if I place the item, and I had already saved this once before I opened it in this video, so I don't need to re-include the linked file. It will be there when I download it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at mark_higdon@fitnyc.edu. Thank you.